Uh, so welcome to those of you who are just joining on the recording. We're just getting into some quick welcome and housekeeping. Um, so the purpose of this call is to provide everyone with information and answer any questions about this year's in-person DC Days, which will be taking place June 8th through the 11th. And we're asking that folks hold their questions until the end, unless it's sort of a pressing accessibility issue or a challenge understanding what we're talking about. Um, so we can move on to the next slide, please. So yeah, just a quick little bit of background about the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability. So since 1987, ANA has worked to hold the federal government accountable through citizen education, empowerment, and action. And ANA was formed by organizations that are communities in the shadow of nuclear weapons facilities. So ANA includes more than 30 local, regional, and national organizations concerned about the consequences of U.S. nuclear weapons and waste policies. So those are the sort of two main buckets of work. The nuclear weapons work falls under what we call the Peace Pod, and the waste policies fall under what we call the Green Pod, which are the two sort of working groups that are responsible for moving this work ahead within ANA. And so ANA's leaders are deeply rooted in community, and those communities are directly affected by these policies. And so what we bring is our experience to bear in addressing these issues, including government spending, public accountability, nuclear nonproliferation, waste cleanup, treatment, and disposition, and the health and safety of workers, the public, and the environment. And this year, we're excited to have over 10 first-time attendees. I see a lot of you on the call, which is great. And we were able to provide up to 20, roughly 20 scholarships to support BIPOC, frontline, and next generation attendees to help strengthen the diversity of our delegation, which I think is pretty important to ANA. So we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so DC Days is ANA's yearly lobby trip to the Capitol. And the goal for this year is to meet with roughly 80 legislators or their staffers, as well as some agency staff, to advance health protective policies around nuclear weapons and waste issues. And that's particularly for frontline communities that, again, are living in the shadow of these weapons and waste. And the sort of strategy that we employ is to prioritize certain meetings based on a few factors. So one is, of course, whose constituents are coming to DC. It's always great for constituents to meet directly with their legislators, and they often listen more to their constituents than they do to the rest of us. We also really prioritize members that sit on either the Appropriations or Armed Services Committee, and these are two committees that are really responsible for making recommendations and decisions on a lot of the weapons and waste policies that the federal government considers. And so these are two really important committees, Appropriations largely for the waste issues, and the Armed Services Committee largely for the nuclear weapons issues, but there is a little bit of overlap. And so as we're setting up meetings, we'll prioritize these two committees as well as trying to set up meetings with groups that or for Congress members whose constituents are member groups. And then we also have a few meetings with agencies. These are usually smaller or closed meetings that are sort of continuations year after year of a lot of the work that ANA does. But just to throw that out there, you might see a couple of those meetings um, either with the DNFSB, Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board, or NNSA, National Nuclear Security Administration. I always get these confused. But yeah, there's a few agencies in the alphabet soup that we meet with regularly. And so we can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so just some logistics about how to prepare for going to DC for those, especially who have never been to DC before. The sort of primary point of reference for a lot of what we're going to be doing in DC can be found in what we call the central location. I'm just going to drop it in the chat right now just so everyone has it. And so this is a spreadsheet that contains all of the information. It will have the meetings that are scheduled. It will have all of the locations that we're going to be meeting at, addresses, attendees. So any information that you're looking for, this is sort of the first point of reference, and it should answer the vast majority of questions that folks have. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out to Carlos or me, and we can help point you in the right direction as well. Um, in terms of attire, DC is a fairly formal city still, and even though it will likely be pretty hot and swampy weather while we're there, the majority of folks will be wearing suits or other sort of business attire. And we don't sort of mandate that folks match that level of formality, but we do recommend folks try to dress professionally and wear comfortable shoes because we will be doing a lot of walking. Um, layers make sense, especially if it's going to be rainy. But I think largely it will be pretty hot and humid this time of year, so I would try to dress for warm weather or pack for warm weather. And then just a reminder that we do a lot of walking, even just within the buildings. There's a lot of square footage. So, again, comfortable shoes and be thoughtful about what you're bringing with you because you will have to sort of carry it around with you all day. So, sometimes a notebook is better than carrying around a heavy computer if you have a lot of meetings that day. Next slide, please. Oh, and I'll pass this over to Carlos.
Yeah, so Alex talked a bit about the business of the week, but there's a bit of extracurriculars as well. Here's the locations for some of the evening events that we have planned for you guys this week. So starting with the Sunday training, that's a full day of training from 9 to 5. It'll be at the United Methodist Building, which is on Capitol Hill, right next to the Supreme Court. So we're super lucky to have that location for the training as well as for the week. That's our headquarters. So anytime that you need to stop in between meetings or just to hang out or to just check on what meetings you signed up for, it's super closer to the Senate side, but being on Capitol Hill makes it super convenient to stop by during the day if you need to sit down or eat or whatever. Um, so that's the headquarters. Our Monday evening event, we have a film screening at Union Market at a pop-up theater called the Angelica Theater. So that's about a 15-minute cab ride away. Um, that should be that's starting at 6 p.m., so plenty of time to get from meetings to the film. The film is called To Use a Mountain. I'll get into it in the next slide as well. It's a brand new film premiering this year, so we're super lucky to have that. And I'll go more into that in the next slide. But the Tuesday event, as traditional, is the award ceremony. We're at Busboys and Poets again, but this time at the downtown location on 5th and K Street. That's also a pretty close ride from Capitol Hill, probably 10 minutes. It's walkable if you're brave and if you have comfortable shoes. And finally, the Wednesday event is our pizza party. We're changing it up this year. It will be on Wednesday, and that's at the Quaker Welcome Center, which is less than 2 blocks away from the United Methodist Building. So that's an easy walk over, and that's a really nice space that they have there for us. And so here's a little map in case you're more of a visual learner. It's close by, at least on Capitol Hill, sort of the orange book is the United Methodist Building. And as you can see, it's right next to the Senate office buildings. But it is a little further away from the downtown and then from Union Market. But a pretty easy cab ride if that's for you, or if you want to walk or take a scooter. Um, yeah. So here's a poster for the movie. Like I said, it's brand new, called To Use a Mountain. Features some of our ANA members. I know Ian Zabarti from Las Vegas is featured in the film, so we're hoping to have him as a panelist as well for after the movie. The runtime is about an hour 40, and then we're planning to have about a 30-minute panel discussion with him and a couple others right after the film. We're trying to get a head count for the film. This is pretty rough. The theater has a seating capacity of about 57. So Alex is dropping these links in the chat, but feel free to scan the QR code as well. It should take you to the same um, Google form. And like I said, it's just an informal head count. Um, let's see. And yeah, I already went over the other events, but in general, the week would look like you do 2 or 3 meetings during the day between 9 to 5, usually a morning, and then around noontime, and then an afternoon meeting. You can do as many or as little as you want, and then feel free to come to our evening events. They're included with your DC Days registration fee. And then the optional is the spring meeting, which is um, where all our ANA members they stick around, discuss how the week went, talking about ANA overall, how it's going. Alex can probably speak more about it as well.
Yeah, I actually have never attended a spring meeting myself, but what I gather is that there's a lot of debriefing from the meetings that have happened and a lot of strategizing about what comes next. And I'm sure when we get into Q&A, some of the other folks on the call might be able to provide some more details if folks want more info on spring meeting. All right, should we move on?
Sure.
All right. So Carlos mentioned the Sunday training. So this is a full day training that will go into a lot more detail than what we're going into here. Um, and it is mandatory, so you should plan to arrive and get there by 9 a.m. So plan your travel accordingly. We do registration and breakfast at 9. And then we start the welcome, introductions, and the DC Days overview around 9:30. We'll have a little break, and then we move into issue workshops. So this is where we talk about the specific issues that the Peace Pod and the Green Pod, the weapons and the waste side of things, are prioritizing for this year. And then we take a little break, and then you switch. So if you started in the Peace Pod, you would move to the Green Pod for the second session, and vice versa. Um, then we take another little break to move back to the main room. And this is where we give a little bit of an overview for how we sign up for meetings, what that process will actually look like, how you decide which meetings to go to, and how you actually sign up for them. Then we'll move on to lunch. We have a bunch of different options for folks, so hopefully everyone will get good and fueled up for the second half of the day, which includes the actual team meeting sign up, where you sign up for the meetings. Then there's the political and policy environment review. So that's really just an overview of what's going on in DC this year. Really helpful, especially in years where a new administration takes over. It's good to sort of get some of the local context, understand some of the political maneuvering that's happening and how we can either adapt or sort of alter course accordingly. Um, then we move into a lobbying 101, which will be for most of the participants, especially all the new folks. And that is really just a little bit of a training on what to expect from a lobby meeting, what you might experience during the meeting, what you should be prepared to say during a meeting, and just sort of that whole experience. And then there will be a smaller group of folks in the back room who are team leaders, and those folks will know who they are. They're the ones that will be all of the meetings that we attend, and so they'll be doing a little bit of a training and briefing in the back room. Then we move on to what we call team meeting practice. So this is where you meet with your regional caucus. So that will be folks from your region. And in my case, that will be most likely the California delegation. And so we'll all meet together. We'll talk through some of the important issues for our region, and we'll sort of practice what a team meeting would look like with everyone. Um, Then we move on to the team meeting debrief and wrap up with evaluation forms, just gathering feedback from folks. And then we're hoping everyone will join us for a group picture at the Supreme Court. So we'll just walk over. It's literally right across the street, and hopefully be able to get a nice photo of everyone before we all part ways. So that's what to expect from Sunday. It's a long day. Make sure to get a good night's sleep the night before. And yeah, be prepared to learn a lot. All right, next slide, please. So in terms of an actual lobby meeting, ANA sort of has a set of rules that we follow every year that sort of help ensure that meetings go well, help us keep track of what happened in the meeting, so that when we meet the following year, we have records of what that office promised to do and whether they did it or not. And so we have a little bit of a format that we'll go through right now, just so everyone knows what to expect. Um, but the main thing that everyone should know, especially first timers, is that the team leader is your point of contact for any questions about a meeting that you have. So if you're signed up for a meeting, the team leader should be able to answer any questions you have, and that should be the person you talk to. And you'll, again, figure all of that out on Sunday for the Sunday trainings, or during the Sunday training. The next is that we recommend folks get to your meetings as early as possible. So what we do is we have a pre-meeting before you meet with a member of Congress to discuss who's going to say what, figure out any sort of specific talking points that might work with that legislator, or any sort of local issues that are really important to bring up alongside the ANA asks. And so you'll sort of meet with your team leader, discuss all of that, so everyone feels comfortable going into the meeting. And so we recommend you get to that location, to where you're going to meet with your member of Congress, at least 30 minutes ahead of time. So that will give time for you to meet with the team leader, to meet with the other members of your delegation, and really figure out a solid plan. Just a reminder that you will have to go through security. It's not super strenuous, but sometimes the lines can be backed up. So just keep that in mind as you're factoring in, especially if you're traveling from outside of the building and you're going to have to go in. Sometimes, especially after rush hour or first thing in the morning, the line can be a little bit longer than usual. So I would budget at least 15 minutes for that, even though it's probably going to take less. And then the meetings with the members typically last about 30 minutes. Sometimes they go a little over, sometimes they run short, depending on the staffer schedule. But we roughly plan for 30-minute meetings. And so it's really important that folks are concise, because those are quick meetings. So it's good to practice your talking points ahead of time and figure out how to be, yeah, as concise as possible when you're in those meetings. And then one last thing is that it is super easy to get lost. The buildings are not as super or as easily accessible as you might imagine, and so sometimes you think you're going in the right direction and you're not, and then you're actually 10 minutes out of the way because the buildings are enormous. So yeah, especially if it's your first time in DC, give yourself a little bit of extra time to figure out the buildings themselves. All right, we can move on to the next slide. All right, so this is just a sample of what I just went through. Sometimes it's a little easier to have an example. So say you have a 3 p.m. meeting with Senator Warren. What that means is that you want to get to that building around 2:15, which is 45 minutes ahead of when that meeting is. That will give you about 15 minutes to get through security and get to where the pre-meeting is taking place by 2:30. So then for the next 30 minutes, you'll be meeting with your team, prepping yourselves, getting ready for that meeting, and then you'll all walk in together right at 3 o'clock. Or maybe even a couple minutes before. Sometimes if the staffer is available, you can squeeze a couple minutes out, a couple more minutes out of them. So yeah, good to be a couple minutes early. Then after the meeting is done, there's about a 15-minute debrief. And usually what you'll do is walk a little bit away from the office so that you're not talking about them right outside of the office. Sometimes you go down to the cafeteria, grab a snack or a coffee. but it's about a 15-minute debrief where the note taker and everyone else can sort of share their reflections from the meeting, make sure the team leader has all of the information to bring back to ANA. So all that to say, a 30-minute meeting actually requires about 75 minutes total between getting through security, having the pre-meeting, and doing the debrief. So that's why we really recommend only doing 3 meetings in a day, especially if it's your first time. Um, and maybe even, having a day where you only have two because it is a lot of running around. So try to keep it to 3 meetings a day because, you need about 75 minutes for each meeting. All right, we can move to the next slide. And so this is just a little bit more about the details about who will be in each delegation when you're meeting with the member of Congress. So uh, everybody who attends a meeting will be one of these roles. So you will either be a team leader who is in charge of making sure the meeting goes smoothly, making sure folks feel comfortable, comfortable and prepared for what they're going to share, and making sure all of the information gets back to ANA after the meeting is done. And also just answering any questions that come up along the way. I think a lot of times folks, especially new folks, have questions and team leaders are there to support you and make sure your first trip is a success. The timekeeper is also a really important role. The first thing you do when you walk into a meeting with a member of Congress is confirm how much time you have with them, because sometimes you think you have 30 minutes and then they kick you out after 15 and you didn't know that, so you didn't get through all of your talking points. So if the meeting is only going to be 15 minutes, it's best to know that right at the start of the meeting so you can prioritize the key talking points. And the team leader can sort of help adjust things as necessary if that crops up. But the timekeeper will also just help move things along, make sure that everyone is getting a chance to speak, and make sure that you're getting to all of your talking points. So timekeeper is really important. Same thing with the note taker. The note taker will be primarily responsible for not transcribing everything that you're discussing in the meeting, but taking any of the key uh, either information that they shared to you or any of the key facts that you brought up with the member of Congress. So note taker will be really important. And then after the meeting, during the debrief, the note taker shares all of that information with the team leader and the rest of the team to make sure it's all fully there. And then finally, the participant. So that's if you're none of these other roles, you will be a participant and you'll get to go to the meeting. You'll get to say, likely one or more of the talking points that we're going to go through soon. And you'll get to actually lobby with the member or their staffer. And so those are the main roles for everyone that will be in the meeting. And then the meetings and the team leaders, just as a note, are determined by the DC Days Committee. And really, we try to strive for a preference for local groups to meet with their representatives. So that means, if I'm coming from California, I'll likely meet with a few of my California representatives, and it would be better for me to be at a California meeting than someone from Ohio. So we try to keep all of that in mind. And then for some meetings, we do prioritize some issue area expertise. So, for example, if that person from Ohio has some really useful information about nuclear weapons that would be great for my senator from California to know, we might, make some adjustments there. So that's basically how we determine the team leaders and who goes to the meetings for those team leaders. And we can move to the next slide. All right, so what will we actually be talking about when we meet with our members? So here are the two fact sheets. Sorry, one is a little bit smaller than the other. It's not because it's any less important. It was just a formatting issue. But we have the green pod on the left and the peace pod on the right. So the sort of main asks for the green pod, so this is around the cleanup and waste issues, are that we want to have a full cleanup, full funding, and to protect everyone. It's a very broad topic, and you'll see underneath that what we're really talking about is expanding the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, and fully funding cleanups to ensure that everyone who is impacted by either nuclear weapons testing or from nuclear waste facilities are protected. Um, the second main bucket is around consolidated interim storage. So this is an ANA position that we've had for a long time, is that we oppose essentially moving all of the nuclear waste that's currently at 100 plus sites around the country and moving them to temporary intermediate spaces until we find a permanent solution. And so ANA believes that what we should do instead is leave waste as close to where it was generated as possible to prevent, spreading waste to new areas and contamination to new areas, and to pursue a fully funded final repository that is really rooted in community consent. Um, and I might have embellished a little bit there, but that's sort of the main bucket there. And then finally, the last bucket is around to stop making new waste. And so that means no funding for new reactors, no reprocessing of nuclear waste, and no more subsidies. So again, all of this information will go into way more detail during the Sunday training, and we'll also have the full report to everyone ahead of DC Days, so you can read all of this in way more detail than I can give you. But I'm just trying to give a quick overview so folks know more or less what we're going to be talking about. And so then we'll move on to the Peace Pod recommendations. First one is no to nuclear testing. I can't believe I have to say this, but we are considering the resumption of nuclear testing in this country, so we have to tell them not to do that. There's also a lot of new warheads that are being developed, new weapons, and so we're going to ask members of Congress to stop funding those new warheads, as well as to stop funding the bomb plants. Or the new bomb plants that we're considering building. And so those are the plants around the country that build the different parts that contribute to nuclear weapons. And so there's a whole list of ANA groups that are working on those issues, and we'll go into way more detail about that at Sunday training. Next one is around supporting the rule of law for nuclear disarmament. So this is really about supporting two resolutions that call for nuclear abolition, and both call for the support of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And then finally, protecting the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board. Currently, there's a threat of a lack of quorum because it requires a presidential and Senate approved nominees, I believe. So the main goal here is to make sure that the Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board, DNFSB, is able to continue its function and not fall by the wayside through all of this federal motion. All right, and we can move on to the next slide. Again, all of that information will be shared in way more detail, and there will be a lot of people who can answer questions way better than me at the Sunday training. But if folks do have questions, happy to entertain some of them. All right, so next up is just some general recommendations. So for folks that are traveling to DC for the first time, obviously DC is a great place for museums, monuments, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. So we recommend that folks are focused on ANA activities during the day, but we hope you also enjoy your time there. Make time to go check out some museums and other things while you're there. And again, lots of locals will be able to provide good recommendations. Carlos mentioned that for Monday and Tuesday night, it probably makes sense for most people to do some sort of carpooling with Uber or Lyft or a cab, since there will be a lot of us traveling to and from the same places. So on Sunday, make some buddies, try to find folks that are interested in going to those two events, and figure out the best way to get there so you don't have to travel by yourself. And again, If you're looking for carpool, talk to anybody, especially me, Carlos, or anyone else on the DC Days committee, and we'll try to help you find information or somebody to ride with. Um, all right. Next up is just a reminder. I always forget to take photos when I'm in DC because I'm just busy doing stuff. And then I'm always mad when it comes time for the end of year fundraiser and we don't have any photos to share. So I think both for that reason and also just, for follow up with the members themselves for social media, I think there's a lot of good reasons to take photos. And so just a reminder while you're there, if you see something cool, you're in a meeting, you're meeting with the member themselves, and you come out, ask for a photo with them. Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no, but I think that's a great way to sort of hold them accountable later on. You can send the photo and say, hey, remember when we met 6 months ago? Where's your support for HRES 317 or whatever the issue was? Again, all of the information or the vast majority of information can be found in the central location spreadsheet, which is in the chat, and also get sent out by Dawn. So hopefully you've seen that. But again, if you have any questions, most information can be found there. So check there first. And then finally, just when you're in DC, pay attention to your surroundings. I think both for safety reasons, but also, there are situations where you could be talking about someone in the halls of Congress and the member themselves could walk right by. And so you want to just sort of pay attention to who's nearby. You might not recognize everyone, but that doesn't mean that they aren't taking it back to their boss. So yeah, try to just keep that in mind as you're having your meetings, especially your pre-meetings outside of the offices. All right, next slide. So getting to the end here. So these are just some miscellaneous items. So as I said, the DC Days asks and report are being finalized and we'll get those to you as soon as possible. We'll also have, I believe, some printed out copies at the Sunday training itself. So if you don't get a chance to review ahead of time, at least on Sunday, you'll be able to look through some stuff. But we do recommend if you have a chance to read through as much of this information ahead of time as possible. A reminder, we don't provide lodging, but we do have some recommendations for where folks can stay. If you have questions about lodging, feel free to reach out and we can try to point you in the right direction. Hopefully most folks have already booked their travel and are all set with that. And then finally, I'm just going to drop a link in the chat before we move on to questions. And this is just an evaluation of this training itself. It helps make sure that we're covering all the right information every year that we do this. So if folks can just take a few minutes after this call, fill out the survey, and just let us know what you found useful, what you wish we had talked about, what you wish we had talked less about, or any other feedback that you have. All right. So now we can move on. I think it's just the Q&A portion now. So if folks have questions, oh yeah, and a lovely photo of us from a couple years ago. And hopefully, yeah, this year we'll take this photo right in front of the Supreme Court. So it'll be a nice backdrop. All right. So any questions that folks have? And yes, this is being recorded and I will make sure that it gets sent out to everybody who signed up for this meeting. I believe Dawn will also share it out to the bananas list and everybody who's registered for DC Days. Timon, yeah.
Yeah, can you just say a bit more about the teams? Like, are you normally like four people, or do they vary a lot? And how does that work to choose the teams to be in for different meetings?
Yeah, so it does vary a little bit. I wouldn't say it varies a lot. I'd say most team meetings have between 3 and 6 people. There might be some meetings that are less, some meetings that are more, but I'd say that's sort of the sweet spot. So yeah, there's usually a team leader, time keeper, note taker, and then one or two other participants. And yeah, that's both so that we make sure that folks actually get a chance to speak during the meeting. It kind of is a bummer when you travel all the way to DC and you're meeting with someone and then you don't get a chance to speak. So I think we do try to make time for everyone. And also, the spaces can sometimes be crammed. Sometimes the member doesn't, or the staffer doesn't actually have an office. And so you're meeting out in the hallway. And so for those reasons, it's sometimes nice to have a little bit more of a nimble group.
And you don't choose those ahead of time. It's all sort of
Well,
chosen on
we
the
will,
Sunday.
yeah, we'll choose them on the Sunday training. And if you look at the central location, there is a list of all the meetings that were scheduled. We're constantly scheduling more, and we will be up until probably the day of meetings. So that will constantly be updated. But if you're sort of curious about meetings that you're interested in, ones you'd like to go to, I would check that out and just start thinking about it. But yeah, on Sunday training, when we meet with our regional caucus and after everyone sort of has the orientation, will that's when we do our meeting sign up. And so again, over the course of 3 days, if you do 3 meetings each day, you get roughly 9 meetings while you're there. So keep that in mind as you're prioritizing as well.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. And I see there's a question about the slide deck. And yes, I will drop that in the chat if you just give me one moment. Just make sure I have to share it with folks. So this is the slide deck. And folks should have access to it. All right. Any other questions folks have?
This is Sarah. Did you want to say anything else about the film, or was that it? Just the sign up?
Yeah, I don't think we have much more to add unless Carlos or anybody else wants to jump in and share a little bit about how we went about coming across and choosing that film. But I yeah, I don't think there's, unless you have a specific question about it.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't provide any info about the movie itself, but I'm excited about it. All right. Any other questions? I know sometimes it takes a minute to think of them. And if not, and if folks, there is a spot in the evaluation. So if something comes to you in the next week and you said, "Oh, I should have asked that question," feel free to drop it in there and I'll make sure to get back to you. All right, I'll do last call for anybody. Also opening it up to, I see a few longtime ANA folks on the call. So anything anyone else wants to share, feel free to jump in. But otherwise, maybe we can wrap up. Oh, Anne, I saw you come off mute.
Um, is there any charge for the spring meeting?
Good question. I don't know. Carlos, do you know that? Or Don?
Yes, there is a charge and there's a separate registration for it. That and I should have looked in advance, but I think the registration for spring meeting is up on the ANA website. Hold on just a second and let's see if that's the case. So yes, the reason for that is we have 2 more days, so there are additional expenses, food, and the location uh, for it, et cetera, et cetera. So there are costs associated with the spring meeting, so that's why there's a separate charge for that as well.
And do we pay now or when we get there?
I think the board wants I'll look to see if there's anybody on the board on. The idea is to do a registration online in advance, kind of like what people did for DC Days, but it's a separate thing. It looks like the spring meeting registration is still not up yet, but it should be up shortly. We'll we'll check with the board to see when that's going to happen.
And how much does that cost?
So that's I mean, the reason that there's it's hard for people to understand. There's a separation between the DC Days event, the 4 days that Alex and Carlos has just talked about, which is a committee that does the planning for that. Planning for the spring meeting is actually done by the board of directors. And so that's why people like Alex and I and people on the DC Days committee don't control that. Ellen Thomas, Ellen, can you answer the question?
I think it's $50, but I'm going to look at the minutes while this is going on and confirm it.
So Ellen is on the board, so that's the reason that
Yeah, because I know I paid for DC Days, but I didn't think I paid for the spring meeting, so just trying to get all the loose ends taken care of.
Thank you for that. And yes, that's very important. I know there was some work being done on getting the spring meeting together. As I say, that's a separate group of folks, the board that does that. So there will be some more information going out on that. But no, I think it looks like you can't have registered yet because the registration doesn't seem to be up.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
No, I'm sorry. It's $100, I believe.
Yeah, I was thinking it was something like that.
Yeah, it's the same as it was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, it was suggested at the meeting, but $50, but no, the decision was made 100.
All right, thanks for that, Ellen. Any other questions folks have? If not, really appreciate you all being here. Looking forward to being with you all in DC in just a couple weeks. And yeah, safe travels, everyone. And please, just a reminder, please fill out the evaluation. It really does help while we're planning next year's DC Days. So, all right, thanks a lot. Have a good night, everyone. Talk to y'all soon.